his life a little better. But he's still, depending on the size.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Commission for Monday, November 9th. We'll start with a roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Becky Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Parrish.
Here.
Commissioner Marchese.
Here.
Commissioner Mason.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Mayor Abendroth.
Here. We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is approval of the October 12th minutes. Looking for a motion.
I have a motion to approve the minutes with one change.
Okay.
Robin, I have one change to the minutes.
Yes.
Number 9, there's a comment in there that says Commissioner, and it's blank. He was stated something, and it's Commissioner Mason. There wasn't a name after Commissioner. Number 9.
We'll make the correction.
Thanks.
Is he claiming it?
Yes, that was his.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is John Mickelson for Gigi's. This is a public hearing for a conditional use grant. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant approval to allow for the operation of a restaurant, the Wooden Goose, at 1556 West Mequon Road. Need a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to go into public hearing.
I guess we're just casual.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address this issue? Come on up. State your name.
My name is Jeremy Kaler, and I live at the address of 1600 Mequon Avenue, or Mequon Road, sorry. I live right next door to Gigi's, and I guess I'm opposed to putting a restaurant right next to my house, because it is literally just the gully and the back of, or the west side, if you will, of the whole establishment there. It's one building that goes along the side. I say it for a couple reasons. Number one, I don't wish to smell a restaurant all the day long, every day. I have nothing against the Wooden Goose. I have nothing against the businesses that go in there, except when it comes to the offending smell of a restaurant all day long. I also know that since I get a ton of critters in my backyard going into the dumpsters and everything else, that is something that also is something I wouldn't like to see any more of. So for those reasons, I'm opposed to it. I live in the house right next to it, as you can see, in between the church and the Gigi's building.
Isn't that part of the church property?
That's all I have to say about it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will look for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Jack.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a conditional use grant for the Wooden Goose, who will be relocating from Venture Court. As many are aware, the medical office building was approved on the site, which would require demolition of the building. I have the site plan up on the screen that shows the location that Wooden Goose would be taking up. It's in the rear of the site. It's roughly 1,977 square feet. Their hours of operation are similar to what they currently have. It's 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Sunday. Based on the seating plan, there will be available 64 seats for patrons, and based on the number of employees, it required 29 stalls in the parking lot. The current parking lot has approximately 50 stalls, and Gigi's is a fairly low volume user in the facility, so staff doesn't see any issues with parking or any other issues with the site. The only concern that we do have, and we've had this come up with a couple other restaurants, is potential penetrations for HVAC equipment. There is currently nothing on the building, and sometimes we see these after the fact, so we are just making the applicant aware that any potential penetrations to the roof of the building will require screening, and staff will require approval for those screenings. So with that, we do recommend approval according to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. Mickelson, welcome.
Yeah, Bob Schuster is Wooden Goose here, and myself, John Mickelson. As you know, Bob has been the proprietor of the Wooden Goose for the last 25 years, a country cafe in the city of Mequon. We're moving from Venture Corp because it's being raised by Ryan Companies, and we found the site. It's a currently very underutilized office building. It seems like a good match for his business because of the low-impact type of retail business right there. There's rarely more than 5 cars in the parking lot. He's occupying 2,000 square feet. It's got adequate parking and enclosed trash. So it seems like a very good site for relocating the Wooden Goose.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners? Comments? Becky?
Can you talk about the enclosed trash a little bit more? Is it going to be just high fence and then?
No, they currently have they don't, I mean, this current business there generates very little garbage.
Right. It'll be
So,
different with a restaurant there.
I don't know of any complaints that Bob has ever had at his current facility. I used to run the Venture Court, and he never had complaints about the trash there either. So I think the first I've heard about the residents is tonight.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I should restate. When you were talking about enclosed, are you saying it would be, how is it enclosed? Just a
It's currently
dumpster?
enclosed on the site. The current building has a complete enclosed garbage.
Part of the building,
It's separate from the building, but it's completely enclosed,
like a garage,
like a garage without a roof.
like our Richmond garage?
You
Yeah.
can't see into it.
Okay,
It's got nice gates.
So that would
It's a
be more of a
well-maintained facility.
sure.
You
So a
you wheel out the
deterrent to-
you wheel out the garbage, you wheel it back in, and
Yeah.
it's always nice and neat.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's up to the Bob to maintain it. You know, as a new tenant there, it'll be his responsibility to make sure that's policed and not causing a problem.
Right.
And
Like
it
you said,
hasn't been a
it'll
problem in
generate-
his current facility.
Okay, thank you.
Jack, what provisions have been made in the restaurant plan to deal with cooking odors, the concern of the adjacent resident?
Well, in the past, we haven't really regulated odor. I mean, it's really difficult to quantify. They are required to have hoods and all other mechanical equipment per the state code, so that'll all be in place. But again, with odor, it's a very difficult thing to quantify. There's a number of other restaurants on that block, including Panera, Cousins, so I haven't heard any concerns or complaints with regard to smell from any of those establishments. This is on Mequon Road, which is a very heavily traveled commercial area, so I'm not sure if there's any requirements we could place on this development in terms of conditional use to deal with an odor issue.
Mr. Adams?
I do remember years ago that same concern came up for the Solar Height residents when, Mamma Mia's and all those different restaurants were in. Now, that's a much bigger restaurant, correct? It's much more than 2,000 square feet.
Yes.
And we've never had to institute a nuisance complaint because it all worked. I'm just saying it worked out well.
It also came up with the Taco Bell restaurant as well.
And you've
odor,
never had
and we haven't
complaints.
had any complaints with regard to
I
odor.
do know that the Wooden Goose, are the hours, do you mind, hi, are the hours going to basically stay the same as what you have now when you close at 2 most days?
Yeah, in fact, one of the hours on Sunday, it was 8 to 3. No, it's 8 to 2. We close every day at 2, and we open at 6 Monday through Saturday till 2, and then Sunday we open at 8 till 2.
And don't you have a fish fry Friday night? No?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying it's a pretty limited hour restaurant compared to many in the community. Thank you.
And with a conditional use grant, if there are any problems with odors or
Right.
anything else, that it can come back to the commission to correct that problem. Commissioner Fox?
Yeah, I took a look at the location over the weekend, and it looks fine to me. The only question I would have is traffic. The driveway empties into Mequon Road, but there's not a cut-through, so there's no provision for a left turn coming out of there, which will mean you'll go down and do a U-turn and come back if you want to go back east, which sort of congests the traffic a bit more than we've probably seen with more usage now than we've had with Gigi's. I don't know what extent that becomes a problem, but I think it is a change.
Yeah, even with the number of increased patrons to the site, I don't think it would rise to an issue that would cause a traffic problem. I mean, you have a number of other buildings along that stretch that do a lot more average daily trips than this property will, and they face the same situation with no median access. So I don't think it would be an issue, especially based on his limited hours of operation.
Okay, that was the only problem I saw at all.
You have a motion.
I move approval. With
Second.
staff comments.
Motion and a second, subject to staff comments. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Conditional use grant is granted. Glad to have you stay in the community.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The next public hearing is for Richmond Investments, conditional use grant, building site plan approval, and specimen tree removal. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant, building site plan, and specimen tree removal for the development of an office building on the vacant lot immediately west of 7606 West Mequon Road, next to Warzella Photography. Need a motion to go into public hearing.
So move.
Second.
I don't think you can do that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to go into public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I think as the alternate, I think we have 8 people. Am I correct?
Who's the alternate?
Well, Roy is alternate, but we already have, there's 8 people here tonight. So we are now in public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission on this item? Seeing none, entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Jack.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm going to take this item. The Planning Commission has seen this proposal a couple times. There was a consultation in front of you as well as action on the rezoning. Obviously, the council supported the rezoning and the applicant is back for the formal development approvals. The property is located at 7606 West Mequon, so immediately west of the Warzella Shopping Center. And the rezoning was to allow the B3 zoning district. And again, we're looking at a one-story, approximately 5,000 square foot office building. And Richmond Investment Services would be one of the primary tenants. The project conforms with the B3 district standards. However, the applicant is requesting a waiver to the required front yard setback. It's required at 95 feet when you have no parking between the structure and the public road. In this particular case, they're asking for a waiver down to 69 feet. That does allow for a much greater rear yard at about, I think it's 71-foot rear yard setback, which creates a greater buffer between the office development and the residential neighborhood to the north. This was one of 3 site plan options that were shown at the time of the rezoning, and this was the preferred concept layout. It also keeps all of the parking to the east of the building as well. Their access is being shown as shared access through the Warzella's service and retail site, so they're showing no access on Mequon Road. Staff is comfortable with this shared access. It also includes an agreement for shared parking between the 2 properties. Access, if desired on Mequon Road, would be required to get approval from WSDOT. We're just stating as a city that we would prohibit any access to Solar Avenue. In terms of the parking demand, the applicants are proposing a 19 stalls. The zoning code would require 26. However, the Planning Commission does have the ability to waive those standards. The applicant indicates that their peak operations would result in the need for about 13 stalls, and that leaves 6 additional stalls for a potential other tenant. Staff is comfortable with that reduction in the parking requirement, especially given the shared parking and access agreement between the two properties. The commission has in the past weighed in on the proposal for an accessory structure that looks more like a small one-stall garage. Staff had indicated in the staff report that we would like that garage to sit behind the actual office building. And yeah, Jack can kind of point to the laser with the laser, relocate that so it's located on that side of the parking lot with the garage door facing east. We think it'll give a little bit more seamless sight line with the office building, and that looking a little bit more connected versus having that accessory structure sit out on the property on its own. The request, as the mayor indicated, does request a removal of one specimen tree. The city forester is allowing or suggesting approval of that in accordance with the tree preservation policies, and that compensation for that tree would be required. And you can see it's the specimen tree right there, which is located basically at the terminus of the sidewalk, providing the main entrance into the structure and to the front facade. In terms of the scale of the building, again, this is something the Planning Commission has seen in the past. It's a one-story structure. The scale and massing of the structure is nice, given the residential, context of what is immediately to the west and to the north of here. And it should fit well within that residential character. There were a couple notes in the staff report referencing a wetland area. There is no wetland area on the particular property, so we'll make sure that that's struck from the records tonight, but I just wanted to make sure the Planning Commission understands that we're not dealing with any wetlands on this particular property. That's all staff has for now. If there's any questions, we're happy to address those for you, but we are recommending approval.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Mickelson, Mr.
Yes,
Richmond?
John Richmond is here with me tonight. I think staff report is very complete. I'm not going to take your time and reiterate it, only to say that if you kind of scan the first page and you look at the district regulations, this type of building on this particular site, we have generous amounts of green space, adequate, much larger buffers, less parking, minimal lighting, generous setbacks, and the building we're proposing is a very low profile, single-story building. And the business that is going there is a very low-impact family business. So we think it's a good fit for this transitionary area between the commercial area and a residential area.
Do you have any concerns about the 18 conditions in the staff report?
No, that's why I said it's very complete,
Okay,
and I have no concerns.
thank you. Commissioners?
I have a question.
Commissioner Adams?
I'm just curious, to our architect here. I know that initially, the first time you came, for just an idea, it was going to be a lot like the building that already existed. Then you came forward again, and you had, I thought it was a really gorgeous, like almost arts and crafts kind of building, almost looked like a house. Did you change that, or is this what we saw?
We had a Frank Lloyd Wright concept planned, and it was pretty much low profile like this. It did have, it was a concept plan that showed some, since it was a captured concept plan, it basically showed a lower level that would not work on this site at all.
Okay.
And plus that added more square footage. So this is very much in tune with the same building that we proposed before.
It is, okay.
Yes, it is. It's not, the other one
a little
was,
more business-like, though it is a business, obviously.
it is a business, but this is have a low, the roof profile is 4 and 12.
Okay.
The elevation it's a single-story building, probably less height and stature than this 2-story residence is next door to it.
No, I know. I know the one that you came forth last time was pretty enticing. This one is nice too, but it seems like a little bit is shaved off of that last look.
Okay.
Thank
Don't
you.
we have a slide,
Yes,
full-color slide that you could show?
there was one up there. If I could just
Page
make one
31.
comment, I wanted the neighbors who did have some comments to us and concerns, that we did listen to them, and I think we did a great job working with the city engineer, lowering that roof line, and then also softening it even a little bit more by going away from the metal roof to the shingle roof style, and then softening some of the colors, so that our goal was not only to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, but also make sure that we listened to some of the neighbors' constructive comments, and we wanted to let them know that we were listening. In our plan right now, the way this is structured, and we're in full agreement with what has been proposed, I think this is going to look very much like a park-like setting when we are finished with this. It will really clean up that entire lot area from where it now stands.
No, I agree. You've worked very well through the process, and you've gotten support. The fact that no one spoke at the public hearing shows you met a lot of their, very sensitive to the neighborhood. And I do like the look of this building. I'm not saying I didn't. It just seemed a little bit different. Sorry if I came off that way. You might want to consider, too, I know you have choices with that specimen tree, but I know you were going to, have vegetation to the back for the neighbors. You might want to just, instead of giving the city money, just replant trees on the property to use for the privacy issues.
That is our plan.
Good.
Yes.
It's nice to hear.
Total agreement with you.
Mr. Schaefer?
I think it's it's a Serrari-style building, fine, nice design. My only question is you have stonework there that doesn't specify the kind of stone. It looks like it's Lannon stone. Is that in fact?
Well, no, I've probably used like a Clinton, I'm going to use a stone that's got longitudinal lines, horizontal lines. I'm not going to use a Lannon stone.
You're not going to use Lannon stone?
No, it's more of a more rectangular, Frank Lloyd Wright. Lannon stone is kind of curvy shaped.
Yeah, it depends on the type.
It's dated.
Yeah.
We're not using that. It's more of a rectangular.
Like an ashlar pattern?
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
That's fine.
Architect lingo. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Commissioner Schaefer?
I've got, well, go ahead. Go ahead.
The reason the specimen tree is in jeopardy or is being removed is because we chose we advised on the specific option of the three options, right? That's furthest away.
Yeah, the reason for the specimen tree is because we want to give as much buffer to the residences in the back.
I get it.
We could save the specimen tree if we push the building back. That seems counterproductive to what we would like, our goals for the neighborhood. And then, so we would rather take the specimen tree out, replant it, and put more trees to the rear.
No, it makes sense.
And
given
move the
neighborhood
building forward.
concerns. Yeah. No good deed goes unpunished. Sorry, black walnut tree. The only other thing I was going to just confirm is we're still thinking that the other tenants in the building would be something that's compatible with Richmond. Maybe, I don't want to, like accounting or something, like a CPA or something that again is low volume because.
Accounting, attorney, professional.
So again, low volume from a parking perspective, and then with the spillover to Warzella as necessary.
Right.
Okay.
Our two plans will be an estate tax planning business, and the other one would be an estate and elder law practicing attorney who we are in conversations with. So
it should be very sufficient.
Synergistic to our business.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the project a lot. I only have a question because the two accesses, as we sit here, I believe, neither are approved at this point. You don't have the easement, and do you have the DOT approval?
We don't need DOT approval. We wanted to put an access off Mequon Road. DOT came back and said, we want access on Mequon Road and Solar Avenue. And that is not what the staff would like. That's not what the commission would like. That's not what the residents are like. So that's why we have the cross-access agreement with Warzella.
So you're only coming through the easement then?
Yep. That's correct.
Okay.
I think the city and the developer and the owner's objectives are all clear in this point that we do not want to come off solar.
That's correct. Commissioner Bessler?
Two things. One is the specimen tree that's going to be lost, the black walnut. Black walnut trees produce nice lumber, but they're very unfriendly to any adjacent plants in their vicinity. So it creates opportunity for other plants to thrive in the area that would be in its root zone. And it's always interesting to see how neighbors of a proposed structure initially seem to prefer a neglected vacant lot to an alternative. This is a magnificent replacement
Thank you.
for a long time neglected vacant lot, which was, in my opinion, an eyesore for the neighbors. I think it's a really nice piece of work.
Thank you.
We have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve staff recommendations 1 through 18.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to approve, subject to staff comments. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to regular business, we have Stephen Klug for Klugstead Corp. The applicant is seeking certified survey map approval for a land division for the property located at 9520 West Freistadt Road. Is the applicant here?
This is a approval for a one-lot CSM of 5 acres, just on the property at 9520 West Freistadt Road. This is part of an overall 53-acre parcel they're carving out. Typically, we put this on consent. I didn't have any other items to put on consent with it, so we did leave it off consent. The only concern or issue we have is that they are coming off Freistadt Road with the land division, so we're just putting in them on notice that any future land divisions of the 53 acres, we're going to want to see an overall access plan. We don't want to continue to have 5-acre pieces coming off Freistadt Road. It is considered arterial on our map for traffic flow, so we want to make sure that we limit the number of access points on Freistadt Road. But other than that, we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. Klug, do
Yes.
you have any comments?
Nope. Just came up if you had any questions.
Does anyone have any comments, questions? Looking for a motion.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Dan Mikolajek. An accessory structure of greater than 1,000 square feet. The applicant is seeking approval to allow for a new storage building structure at 8677 West Freistadt Road.
This request is for a 5,148 square foot accessory building off Freistadt Road. It requires planning commission approval because it is considered an agricultural building in excess of 1,000 square feet. The plan basically calls for, there's a 2,268 square foot accessory building currently on the site that's rather dilapidated. The applicant is looking to remodel that and add on 2,880 square feet. It's shown on the, I have it up on the screen. It is shown with metal steel panel walls and a metal panel roof. The overall height is roughly 21 feet from the to the peak. There is a wetland on the property to the south of the proposed structure. We had the applicant provide us with an updated wetland delineation that shows that it does comply with the 50-foot setback. I guess the only concern with this staff has is that this is a single-family lot. It is a large lot, but it is still single-family. There's no other agricultural operations other than the harvesting of marsh hay once a year. And we're just basically concerned that the 5,000 square foot structure is a rather large building to house such operations, and we just want to make sure the applicant is aware and on notice that it can only be used for agricultural related activities and equipment, and no personal use of the structure is allowed. We've had this come up in the past after other buildings have been constructed that they were used for other than agricultural purposes. So we just want to make sure the applicant is aware of the code requirement. And other than that, we do recommend approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Do you have any comments?
None. No.
No. Mikolajek?
No, you're close to the first one, Mikolajek.
Mikolajek.
That was pretty good.
Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Parrish.
question more for Jack. Is the property's not landlocked, is it? There's an easement?
No, there's an easement to Freistadt Road.
That's it, thanks.
Mr. Mason?
I just had a question for the applicant. What do you use the facility for? Just equipment storage, or what are your plans for the increased size of the building?
Yeah, I've got, I've only been there a couple of years, but we do produce hay, like Jack had mentioned. It's twice a year if we get a chance to, but I've had it done before. Other farmers come in, they got hay binds, they've got the bit larger tractors, and the Klug does it across the street just the same. But the trailers and the rakes, everything has to go. And what's there now is a sliding wooden doors. I don't know if there's a picture of what it is now, but it's just wooden doors, and it's kind of, the roof has fallen off of it. Part of it, the right side of it's got really cool stone texture. Left side, behind the doors, is all brick, cinder block. And I'd want to get rid of that and make the roof and everything conforming to, if you look to the right, you got the nicer houses to the right just the same. But what we're doing is, just the larger, taller doors, those doors there only move about 8 feet wide. I can't even put a trailer in there because of the width of the way it's designed. There's a post every 8 feet, so you can't get anything wider than 8 feet in there right now as it speaks. So just to make everything, and it will be the same roof line too. The roof line comes across. We're not going taller, and we're just going further back.
Okay. So, Jack, part of the restriction would be he would not be allowed to rent it for, like, winter boat storage or anything?
No, just for agricultural-related activities on site.
Okay.
And just to follow that point up, so, because I know a lot of the farmers in the area have a very good relationship with each other, so he's not going to be allowed to store someone else's agricultural equipment, just his own personal ones that he owns?
Correct.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, as soon as I acquire that much stuff to put in there, but just the same. Right now, the person who's cutting is they're the ones that bring their stuff to my property. It's easier if they had the equipment there. But yeah, I will have to have my own equipment in there. That's fine. But everything that goes in there is going to be, wider than the door openings that actually.
I think what I'm saying is someone else may be also keeping their equipment there. That would be okay with me because I like the sharing part of the community. But we might have a problem already, Jack, is what I'm saying.
Well, I did talk to the city attorney a little bit about it earlier in the week because I wanted to make sure we're on the same page. And basically, he stated that under the code, this is under a principal use of the site, and so that the principal use would be agricultural, and the equipment should be related to that principal use on the site.
Okay, so that gets you past that point. Good, thank you.
Okay. The only thing I have to mention also is, we have ATVs and stuff like that. Right now, the right side, we do keep, our toys on the right side just the same. Still planning on keeping on the right side. I thought, from what I've learned, is 51% agricultural is what's needed. We'd still like to keep, four-wheelers, and we've got actually an RV and stuff like that need to get inside so nobody sees it. And that's the way I'd like to keep that stuff inside too. In fact, I just got a notice they didn't like where the RV was parked. Where those black trailers are, we do have an RV sitting there. But I got a notice that they thought it was on the grass, but we did, basically move the RV, kill the weeds and put it back. It is on stone the way it's supposed to be, but it looks better inside, and it's better for the tires and everything, just if you don't keep it out in sunlight, just the same. But that isn't my stuff. That picture's prior to when we moved there, apparently.
Technically, those would not be allowed in this building. It's an agricultural building only. The code does allow for residents to have an accessory structure to store vehicles and other things in. Unfortunately for this property owner, they have an accessory structure already that is roughly 10 by 10. So in order for them to have an accessory structure larger than that, they would have to remove the existing one. And then they would be allowed to build a roughly 2,300 square foot accessory structure for their own personal use. But this is technically limited to agricultural use.
But since this is added on to the original building, would that restriction then apply to the original building as well?
Yes.
And then he really couldn't do what he just described.
He would not be allowed to, after my conversation with the city attorney, would not be allowed to store personal, recreational, or other vehicles in the building. It has to be.
If if the building he's anticipating putting up didn't touch the other building, then he could.
No. I guess that farm, that barn that's there now is a remnant of the old farmstead that was there.
But the building that he's using it now, you're saying is no longer permitted?
I'm saying it's not permitted for residential use now or in the future. It was an agricultural
The
building.
original building, the one we're seeing here in the picture,
Correct.
he's currently using it for personal
I'm not sure I don't know what he's using it for personally right now.
said he puts an RV in there and four-wheelers and so on. What I'm hearing here, there may be a bit of a conflict over what he's allowed to do going forward.
Well, going forward, I think it's fairly clear. It's all going to be one structure, one building. It's 5,000 square feet. The only way that building can be approved on site is an agricultural building. The code limits personal use buildings to 1% of the lot area or 5 acres, which is ever less. And in this case, it's the 5 acres. So to build a personal use building, you'd look at roughly 2,200 square feet.
No, I'm saying, right now, you would probably call this a personal use building in order for him to have the things he's got in there. And as soon as he adds on to it, that changes the character of that building, as I understand
Correct.
you. If it didn't actually be an addition to that building, could he then continue the use he's using now in the existing structure?
And just as is right now?
Yeah.
Sure.
And the other building could stand alone and be okay for agricultural purposes. So it's the attachment's a problem.
Well, it's the attachment and the remodel and the reconstruction of the whole thing. I mean, right now, he's already non-compliant with our code. The shed that was built, and it was not built by this owner, I believe it was built by the prior owner, already put the property in non-conformancy because you're only allowed one detached structure per lot, and he has 2 right now.
I'm hearing a conflict between what he would like to do and what you're saying is legally permitted. So I don't know where we stand here.
It's true.
Am I correct in the understanding that the proposal here is to expand the building, which is incurring non-permitted uses, into a larger building where the owner intends non-permitted uses?
No, I don't, it sounds like the intent was to allow for storage of agricultural equipment, and that's what's allowed. If he's intending and using it for personal use for non-agricultural equipment, then yes, that would not be allowed.
This is similar to a barn, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And not going to identify any farmers, but certainly the farmers in our community, they store agricultural equipment, and they may park four-wheelers or other things in their barn as well.
Yes, sir.
That may be
if
true.
If that's technically against the code, I guess so be it. No one's really going to enforce that.
Right.
It's better than having them park that stuff outside.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Marchese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that this particular citizen is trying to do a good thing. I mean, he's taking down a building that all of us know is probably not as stable as it could, and he's going to replace it with a better building. He's going to continue, as I understand it, to harvest marsh hay, which is a good thing for this community, and actually harvesting marsh hay is good for the environment. And he wants to store a couple of his, and excuse me, sir, but your toys in a brand-new building. Is there no way, I mean, to me, those are all good things for this community. Is there any way we can write this approval to allow him to do that without being an exposure of breaking some ordinance that the city attorney interpreted? Is there anything we could do to help him?
I don't think so. I mean, it's fairly clear in the ordinance, and I think the rationale for the way it's written is that if you own a large 20-acre site, and we do get approached on these from time to time, and they want to build a large man cave or other accessory building, they are limited to the code by the 1% of the 5 acre, which is again 2,300 square feet. And time and time again, people ask, and we say that's the limit under the code, you're not allowed to go any larger than that. So anything that supersedes that would have to be agricultural-related uses. That's the,
So we can't put some kind of a clause or variance in this approval that says, because this particular taxpayer is doing the right thing?
I mean, you can try, it's again, it's what's, if no one challenges it, I guess the commission can attempt to try to clarify that, but I'm not sure how you would, unless you want to treat these as two separate buildings that are connected somehow, and then one would be for recreational and the other one would be for...
I mean, my frustration is, I mean, we're here to help. He's doing the right thing across the board, and then because there's an ordinance that tried to fit every circumstances, an individual is, I guess, when I hear things like in non-conformance, that makes me a little concerned for somebody who's doing the right thing. And I understand he's in non, so there is no precedence. You haven't figured out a little phrase or something you could advise us to kind of help the individual?
Again, I mean, if there was maybe a interior wall that segregated the two portions of the building, you could treat them as two separate buildings, as two separate uses. I guess that would be one way of doing it. My concern is that we've been approached numerous times in the past by property owners that have large properties that want to store their, fancy automobiles, and they want to build large buildings, and we've told them the only way you can do that over that 1% is for agricultural use only. Now, if the commission wants to explore a policy to change the text to allow for larger lots to have larger buildings, that's an option, but we went through this change relatively recently with the the accessory structures, where we did talk about maximizing the amount of accessory buildings to that 1% of the 5 acres. All the other zoning districts, we did allow them to go up to their lot size, but we still capped it at 5 acres.
I'm just going to sit here and be frustrated, if that's okay.
I understand, and that's kind of why I wanted to make sure that we were all clear what we had in front of us, because I sensed there was maybe a potential use other than just straight agricultural. And I understand the applicant's frustration that, there is a nice 10 by 10 land and stone shed in the back that he doesn't want to take down. But the other option, again, would be to remove that 10 by 10, and he could build a 2,200 square foot accessory building to store all his toys in as well. So he does have that option. So he's not completely without option.
Let me make a motion to approve the request, subject to staff comments. And number one, I would say number one should read, the structure shall be used primarily for agricultural related equipment and activities. And if somebody, and a second, thank you. And if somebody wants to challenge us on that decision, they may do so. But that's what I would say. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I do have a comment, though. It would seem to be this ordinance has its own built-in conflicts. I know of people in Mequon who are violating that ordinance. I suspect anybody who's got a good-sized building is violating that ordinance. And rather than sweeping it under the rug, I think we should give some thought to how we can change the language of the ordinance to make it more workable and suitable for what the community is really doing with those structures.
Well, that's a relatively easy fix. I mean, we could regulate the size of accessory structures and not stop them at the 1% of 5 acres and go larger if you want. But we did kind of go through that exercise a few months back, and we decided that we kept it at that 1% of 5 acres. I mean, the agricultural use portion of the code is fairly clear, and the intent of it, I think, is fairly clear. It was meant for farms in Mequon that had homes on them that did not want to be limited by the size of the agricultural buildings because they have a home on them. So that's why they were granted this exception to the rule. But I don't believe there was any intent ever to allow these buildings to be used as quasi-residential. That's what the whole other section of the code that deals with accessory structures is for.
Well, it would seem to me, as we sit here, we can't solve it, but I'd like to have the development people give a little thought to this and talk to us about it, because it's just a silly thing to have existing, because at any point in time, somebody can raise a complaint they see somebody's car in the wrong place, and you've got continual hassle going on for no good reason. So I would like to hear that from you if you
Okay.
could work on that.
All right, your request has been approved.
All right, just to clarify, are we back to majority agricultural, so we can leave four-wheelers in there?
It says primarily for.
Primarily, that's 51% agricultural,
You can
majority
define that
rural.
any way you like.
All right. I'm just going to make sure we stay 51%, then I don't want to upset anybody. All right, I do appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For being honest.
All right, moving on to Kristen Lundeen for the City of Mequon. Applicant is seeking building site amendment approval for an addition to the City Public Works Building located at 10800 North Industrial Drive.
I have the rendering up on the screen for the facility. This is a request to expand the current Public Works facility into a combined facility. This has to do with some of the buildings we have currently on Mequon Road, which we are in the process of trying to sell for development. The project will include a 40,000 square foot addition, some interior office remodeling and shop remodeling, a fuel storage island, and a salt dome for storage of salt. In terms of compliance with the code, it does comply with all of our standards. The property is zone B5, which is our industrial zone. I do have a copy of the site plan on the screen. Basically, what you're looking at is Industrial Drive is in this location. There are two access points to the facility. This is the current driveway, and there's an additional driveway located here. It's difficult to see from the darkness of the screen, but there are also security gates located in this location as well as in this location. The fuel area is not within that enclosed security. There are other entities that use our fuel storage station, and they don't have access to that secured area, so that's why they're outside the gated area. As you can see, this is the building and the footprint as we go towards the back. This is the salt storage facility. And then the parking lot is shown in this area here as well as in the back along this area here. In terms of the property, there are 65 parking spaces on the site based on the number of employees that work at the site and anticipated guests to the site. 45 spaces are required, so staff is comfortable with the amount of parking that is available on site. There are 14 specimen trees on the site that need to be removed, and even though the city is not required to follow the ordinance for specimen tree removal, they are replacing the specimen trees on site in accordance with the tree preservation policy, so we're happy with that. In terms of the building, it is designed with brick, stone veneer, metal wall panels, and aluminum windows. As I stated before, this is the front elevation. We think it does a nice job in complementing the existing design with new materials. The overall height of the building is approximately 38 feet, which complies with the B5. The salt dome storage structure is 49 feet in height. That's a little bit further in the back, and it's fairly well screened from public view, so staff is not too concerned about the visibility of the dome structure. The applicant has also submitted a lighting plan which shows parking lot lights and then recessed cans and wall packs on the building, and then some flood lighting on the rear of the salt dome. All the requirements are met in terms of the full cutoff, except with the related to the flood lighting. It's difficult to make a full cutoff floodlight. The applicant does provide a pretty nice fixture that will limit any potential glare. It's needed for nighttime storage of salt. Obviously, there's 24 operations that the city has to take into consideration. So we're supportive of the floodlight. It will replace the current couple of non-conforming existing pole lights that are in the rear, and it's located on the salt dome, which is roughly 20 feet off the ground. So there's a large industrial building to the north at Telsmith, and to the south is industrial. The only adjacent residential will be across the railroad tracks and the ATC lines on Whitetail Woods. So I don't see any issues with glare reaching those residential properties. Landscaping plan, the applicant did address a number of our concerns early on. We do still like to see a little bit screening along the parking lot in the front. There are some gaps in the landscaping plan roughly in this area here and over here that'll help, that'll need to be filled to help screen the parking lot from visibility. There's also a new sign that they're showing, which is in the lower corner here, a nice looking stone sign that does comply with our sign regulations, but they added it to the plan to show the commission. So with that, staff is supportive of the proposal and does recommend approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Move to Ms. Lundin.
I have nothing further. I'm just here for any of the commissioners' questions.
I'm glad you're following the code.
Yes. We aim to please.
Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Marchese.
I really support this project. I think that it is critical that these facilities are in place for the staff that really takes care of our community so very well. I guess the only fear I have is it big enough for the future?
The plan is based upon the facility needs study that we completed that anticipates us providing enough space for the next 40 years.
And does that include an analysis of what kind of, the kind of Internet of Everything? I mean, as we all know, there's going to be such a migration to a completely high-tech integrated information system. I wonder if you also included those kind of concepts. Obviously, you wouldn't put them in now, but at least make provisions for them in the future.
We are including all provisions, both for equipment, IT services, and everything else that we anticipate needing in that facility over the foreseeable future.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I strongly support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I just want to say that staff has been coming to every Public Works meeting, because I chair it this year, and updating us, and I think a lot of those good questions like you're asking have been going by the alderman, for the future and space. And my question is, seeing that we treat everyone the same here, I don't see a forester report on the 15 trees. I'd just be curious where they are on the site plan, if you could show me, and what type of trees there are.
If Jack can go back, there was in the packet, it included there the table of what the trees are that are being removed. They're all in that section in the back where the wash basin sewer shop will be. So it's all exclusionary in that area, and as Jack stated, we will replace those on site over and above the landscape plan.
What type of trees? I can't read that from here. And then you couldn't have relocated that wash plant? No,
we need the drive-through service, and actually we flipped it. It's the sewer shop now. But for the configuration of the building, I shouldn't say that. There were, I guess, potentially other options, but they also would have impacted specimen trees. We have a number of specimen trees outside of the yard there as well that would have been impacted.
It's just not in a random spot in the parking lot. It's a spot that flows with the building and the openings for what the use is.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And what types are there, Jacker?
Ken didn't identify the types. He met with the architect on site, and they did.
I'd just be curious.
I don't know what they are. He didn't tell
Yeah,
me.
we just did the chart just listed the diameter of them and come up with the equivalent on the right-hand side there.
Okay.
There's 3 of them we're going to try saving, if you can see in the white island area. We're going to try, but we're so close to undercutting foundations that we feel that you could be jeopardizing them anyway, so.
I mean, I guess on the plus side, some of them are just over specimen tolerances, so they're fairly close.
So they're just made the
Yeah,
just made the cut
just
to
made
become
the
a
cut,
specimen. So we're
right.
not talking pre-Civil War shake bark hickories.
No,
and
there's
oaks.
only a
Okay,
couple large
good.
ones, 18-inch, one 18-inch, one 14-inch, and those are ones that are actually, that they could potentially save. So.
Okay, well, I know that you've thought about it. I just want to make sure, treat you like everyone else here. Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
I was going to say almost the exact same thing, not to pile on, but is the forester's report going to be included?
We're exempt, so we
Yeah,
actually
they're not
don't
required to follow the specimen tree under the ordinance. That's why we did not include it, but
Okay.
as a good
It
faith
just feels
effort.
a little egregious when we spend so much time talking about one tree, and then it's like, and now the city will come in and there's 14 trees.
Well, and we are replacing on site, so we are
Yeah.
meeting the ordinance. We're just not required to get planning commission
Got it.
approval for their removal.
So it's good if that goes in the minutes, so that it can say that it's very clearly, been considered and thought through, and it's not just being given kind of a pass through.
2 of the larger trees are the ones we're actually trying to save, that are in that upper white island there.
Do we have a motion?
I move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further comments?
Well, I just would like to hear what our architect on the board thinks of the building.
I think the design is fine, it's great. I don't have any issues or questions.
Great.
I had one more question. If you do need space to expand in the future, is there more space available?
Yes, we own, I don't know if we included the site plan of the entire property, but we still own a good amount of property to the east and the south of our existing facilities. So should we need to expand to the future, we have the land to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, they have about 18 acres, so, and a 12% right now FAR, so they have some land they could expand on.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8, Robert Niebauer for Lakeside Development. The applicant is seeking rezoning recommendation to create a new planned unit development that includes a 60-unit resident care apartment complex, an 88-unit apartment, and a commercial development at 6729 and 6735 West Mequon Road.
I put the site plan up on the screen for this one because it might help kind of going through the history on this site. This property originally was approved for a PUD a number of years ago. It only included basically the back 3/4 of the development. It was approved for 23 residential units with a commercial in the front. It was amended a few years later to add the memory care facility back in this location. And then ultimately, the memory care ended up in the front. Oh, I'm sorry, I had that backwards. The memory care ended up in the front. It was amended at one point to have the memory care in the back corner, and then it was eventually it was built on the property to the north. So currently, what we're looking to do here is a PUD that will encompass all 4 basically different building components. Currently, this is one parcel, the 3 of them, and then this is a separate parcel as well. This building was recently completed. They asked for memory care. They are being part of the PUD for several reasons, which I'll get to in the report. So in terms of the overall site plan, the project itself includes the 40-bed memory care facility, which is here, a 60-unit RCAC, which is a resident care apartment complex, an 88-unit market rate apartment complex, and a mixed-use commercial office development of roughly 26,000 square feet. So those are the 4 components of the project. In terms of our district regulations of the arrival corridor, it does comply with all the requirements except 2, one rather minor issue with regard to parking lot setback off of this property line. This can be adjusted. There's room along this driveway, on this driveway aisle to comply with the 10 feet. We think that can be done, so we're not supportive of that waiver. The other waiver, which is a little bit different in terms of the scope, is the FAR requirement. The arrival corridor has a 50% FAR requirement, and this proposal is at 66%. As you may recall, during our Max Dermont approval on Buntrock, that project as well went over the FAR. That was a town center project, which had a 100% FAR. And the commission approved their FAR at 116%, so it's actually over by the exact same percentage. In terms of the FAR, I think staff feels there's several reasons why the FAR.
Excuse me, Jack?
Sure.
What is FAR?
Oh, floor area ratio, which means you take up all the square footage on each level, and it's a ratio to the entire site. And the code requires you cannot exceed 50% in terms of that ratio. Okay.
Thank you.
So there's several reasons why the FAR exceeds our code requirement. Number one, the applicant did take advantages of a couple of bonus requirements that the code has. One is for enclosed parking. The RCAC